Okay, we're going to talk about how to read data into R. We've worked with a lot of data so far, but most of it has been built into either R as a software or the packages we've downloaded. That's great for examples, but at some point, if you're working with R, you're going to want to work with your own data. And so there's a step then of being able to read in your own data. You can read in data in a lot of different forms. And so it's a few different tricks, a few different commands to get that data in whatever form it is. So let's share the screen. And so in this example, I walk through 3 common forms of data. There's other forms of data that are out there that you'll encounter. These are probably the most common though. The simplest form of data to read in is a CSV, which means comma separated values, which means that sort of the raw data is all of your rows and each of your columns separated by a comma. R can import that really intuitively. It's in the base R. It's called read.csv. And if I want to run this in, I need to tell R where my data is saved. Because it doesn't know. My computer has a lot of different files and folders. And so I need to tell it where is that data for it to read it in. And so I'm going to tell it that it's on my hard drive in my documents folder and called Smokeband. And so I can read this in, and I give these all different names, and we can see that that was successful. I've got the Smokeband data. You can also read in Excel files. Excel files are a little messier, in part because they can have multiple workbooks or worksheets. And if you have 5 worksheets in an Excel file, R isn't going to want to read all of those in as one file, and it doesn't know how to organize it. But it can read in a single worksheet from Excel, but that's not built into the base R. And so you need to read in, you need to load an extension, a package, read Excel. And so I load that with the library. And then the command read underscore Excel instead of period for CSV, read underscore Excel. And it can read this file in from the same location where I saved it.
Can you explain if I don't have it saved in my documents folder, like how would is there a way to like find the file?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that a little more in 2 minutes.
Cool.
And then so a third form of data that you might encounter is called SPSS. SPSS is another popular data management or data analysis software that costs money, unlike R. And so occasionally files are available online only in SPSS form. What it means for these data to be in different form doesn't really matter. You just need to sort of connect the way that you're reading it in to the way that it's written. Essentially, it's just translating the different way that the data is saved within the file. And so if you install this package foreign, you can read in SPSS files, which you'll know by the .sav. Why those are saved as SAV, I do not know. And you need to add one other thing when the data is SPSS. You need to tell it that you want it to be saved as a data frame. And so you need to add this option to.dataframe equals true. It occurs to me that I don't know what you get if you make that false, or what that really means, or why the default wouldn't be for it to be a data frame. I've never sort of used it without that, but you'll need to use that. And so I can run this, and I can show that I've again imported the same data in a different way. I had to sort of export and save this data in 3 different ways. That's not sort of useful, but you can see that you can get the same data even if it's saved as 3 different files. To Donnie's point, so their files are not saved under documents. There's a few sort of ways to figure out where your data is. So one thing that's sort of ignoring in the markdown is this idea of setting up a working directory. And so when you can set up a working directory, and that becomes, what you're telling R is, I want to use this folder to either save stuff or import stuff. And so I could save my documents folder as my working directory. And then I can import these files without telling R where it is, because it assumes that everything I want is in my working directory, and it can work out of that. And so because these are saved in the documents file, I can still import them. I guess I'll add a 2 for this.
So quick question here.
Yeah.
If you set the working directory to documents, and then like us, you download the data files, and they're in your downloads folder, R is not going to look in the downloads folder then? Is that right?
Right. It's only going to look in documents.
Okay. So in other words, like this is setting up this working directory is not a way for you to like find any file that's called smokeban.csv on your computer. Like this isn't a solution to Donnie's concern.
Not directly. So if you don't know where the file is saved, there's no way for R to tell you where it is.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to use sort of your computer search function to find it. So I've set the working directory to documents. If I click on this files, this can show me what my computer looks like, the structure. These are sort of the folders. And so I can click on documents and see if it's there. And so I can see them. And so I could say, okay, I've found where I'm looking for. I can go to
more.
I was wondering the same thing.
What?
I don't like the sound of that.
I'm making a log deep cut of weird things you've said this season on teaching philosophers to code.
This is the blooper reel for teaching two philosophers to code.
Right. But so I can navigate around my computer if I want to try and figure out where did I save that file, to figure that out, if that's sort of useful. If you don't know, if I didn't know the exact way to write where I want to be in my working directory, if I don't remember what all of the files are saved or all my folders are saved as, I can also set my working directory manually by going up to session and set working directory, and I can choose directory.
Gotcha.
And this will take me to the list of files on my computer, but I can sort of navigate through and say, I want to go to Dropbox, Papers, but I don't remember what I'm actually calling things, sports, minor leagues, data, and then I find it, and I can click open. It gives me this in the code line, and so I can save this and take it into my file so that I have it later. But that's another way, if you're not totally sure what all of your folders are called, to get that information later.
Gotcha.
You guys are both on Macs, which are somewhat easier because the sort of home is the tilde, instead of on PCs, it's a little more complicated because it's often C:\users/your name/documents. Mac cuts all of that out and just makes a tilde. And so for you guys, where the files are saved is just downloads. And so all you would need to do on these lines is update it to downloads instead of documents. And it should read in. For PC people, it's a little bit more complicated. One note though, so if I'm working in a folder and I'm reading in a lot of different data files, I probably want to set my working directory to save myself the time of sort of writing out the directions to all of the files. But working directories don't quite work the same in a Markdown document, because the Markdown document, when it's saved somewhere on your computer, the markdown document assumes that that folder is your working directory. And so everything it reads in is based on that. So when you're working in Markdown, like I am here, it's easier to just tell the document exactly where the data is instead of doing it as sort of a reference to your working directory. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're working in an R script, you can set the working directory or not, but when doing it in a Markdown, it's easier to just use sort of the exact directions.
And so then if you wanted to do some analysis with a bunch of different data sets, is that a reason to work in an R script so you can just set the working directory?
Yeah, that would be sort of one typical reason to use the script. Although it's not, so when I sort of created this document, I just cut and paste sort of most of the directions and then change it. So it depending on how sort of hidden on your computer your files are,
Right.
sort of determines how costly that is.
Yeah, gotcha. I mean, because I was thinking here, looking at this, it doesn't look like it's all that much work to tell R exactly where the data is. And so, you know, it seems like it doesn't take a whole bunch of work. And so then I was sort of confused about what value you get out of setting the working directory.
Yeah, it's just the sort of minor inconvenience of typing additional slashes. And each slash is a chance to make a spelling mistake. If I do that, it'll tell me cannot open the connection, which is telling me that it can't find this folder. So.
And then if you forget your code chunk like me, you're in a lot of trouble.
Okay, so I think that's all I have to say. And so I think we turn it over to you to try and read these 3 files in from your computer, unless you have any other questions.
So I don't know if I have a question exactly. I just seem to be failing as I'm trying to follow what you're doing. But maybe I can share my screen and we can walk through what I have done.
That'll be perfect.
Okay, so I have my stuff saved in a folder on my computer called Eric's class. It's in my downloads folder.
Okay.
And I go to my session, I try to set my working directory, go to my downloads, click Eric's class, click open, and that has set my working directory to download/Eric's class.
Okay.
Which is interesting that it did it that way, because last time I did exactly the same thing, it said something different. So maybe it is going to work now. So then, okay, so now I go to Smokeban, CSV, read CSV, that area where you just were. I go to downloads/Eric's class, and then
you're missing a backslash.
Sorry, smokeban.csv.
You're missing a backslash between the tilde and the downloads.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yay.
Okay, but it is only giving me one Smokeban.
So it's because you have it in quotation marks.
Oh.
No, not in the read file, in the head.
Okay.
Because this is like a weird thing that will frustrate people.
Okay.
Put it in quotation marks. You're saying, give me the top lines of this word I've just given you. which
I
it's then
see.
printing. But you're,
Mhm.
instead of saying, look at this data file that is on my computer or in my environment.
That is what I did wrong. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. So now I
So
am,
1 for 3 so far.
okay, so now I'm reading in the 3 files. In this case, I need to read it in from Excel, but I have to change the relevant extension to downloads Eric's class. Do you want me to like write these anew or just change?
No, I always cut and paste, so it's fine.
Okay, so I just read that in, and then we'll make sure that I did it correctly. Just smoke ban Excel, no quotation marks. Hooray.
Hey, I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
So since Donnie, you have this stuff saved in a folder called Eric's class within downloads, what would happen if you just search for that file within downloads and you removed Eric's class? Will R dive down into subfolders?
Not automatically.
Okay.
Well,
So if you took out Eric's class, you would get an error.
so suppose I just did downloads.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's going to give me
Ah, interesting.
complete expression.
That's a weird way of saying it, or of R saying it. Oh, actually, so so go back. The problem is that you need a parenthesis on the end of the
Oh.
command. I think I left that off. And then it should give you a different error. No such file. So what it's telling you is that there's no file in downloads called smoke ban. And so if you get the no such file, that means that you've either misspelled something in sort of your directions, you've maybe misspelled the file name, lowercase s smoke ban won't exist either, or you're looking in the wrong folder, which is always possible.
Okay, so now I've put this in, and this one works as well. So okay, so we've read in all the data.
Perfect.
All right. So that's that.